Hello, one and everyone, and welcome to the Michael Jordan, number 23 of Horizon Zero Dawn with a Therapist. Y'all are fantastic. Thank you for making it this far. Part 22 was a doozy, so I hope you've had some time to really digest what we saw in the last episode. We got more coming at us tonight. As always, I'm so grateful for your support. Thank you so much for the subs. Thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for following the links all in the description. It's fantastic to have your support in all the different areas of the internet that I occupy. Tell your friends about these playthroughs if you think that they would enjoy them. It is wonderful to have so many people popping in, and every day there's more and more subscribers. So thank you. And let's see what we got. This is going to be a wild ride tonight. I'm sure of it. All right.
Welcome to Hades, Zero Dawn's extinction failsafe protocol, the ultimate killer app. Now, I know what you're thinking. The purpose of Gaia is to resurrect life. So why give her a subordinate function, only purpose of which is to wipe out life all over again? I mean, what? Just plumb crazy, ain't it? Well, no, it isn't. Reconstituting a biosphere? That's a tall order. Tech smart as Gaia may be, odds are she won't get it right the first time. I mean, imagine you're Gaia. 200 years from now, and this new biosphere growing, it's all gone wrong. Alkalines are skyrocketing, coniferous forests eroding under the lash of superstorms that would have drowned Noah. It's chaos, a spinning top that won't stop wobbling. And what are you gonna do? Release phase 1 organisms into that hot mess? Hope their CO2 and methane can balance out what you got started? Hell no. What you're gonna do, Gaia, is step aside while Hades takes over and does what you're just too darn nurturing and life-loving to do, which is burn that misbegotten mess of a biosphere to the ground so Gaia can start over. Okay, not burn, more like reverse terraforming operations and suffocate it. But you get the idea. Hades takes the biosphere back to zero. Square one, blank slate. And then, only then, does it hand the steering wheel back to Gaia and say, try again, old girl. And better this time, or we'll have to do this again. That's Hades. It's pretty badass when you think about it. Extinction on demand. Death on speed dial. All for the greater good, of course, but still, kind of metal. So welcome to Hades. Welcome to the void.
Makes a ton of sense why they have him in that position. And the analogy that I want to use here is life support. You have to have people sometimes in a position that are willing to make the hard call. We've talked about this with some of the other people in this game. And if there are people who struggle with the idea of removing what's been created because of like cost sunk or morality or whatever, right? Like if they're trying, because they had to build a morality clause into Gaia. So if Gaia is not reliable to wipe out some of these things that have been created, you do need a protocol that is capable of doing that. And you need people who can swallow that pill and take that on. And Travis Tate seems to be somebody who is open to the idea and can appreciate in some ways the beauty of that. And the reason I say it's the life support thing is you have to be mindful in like a living will or whatever of who is the person that's in charge of carrying out some of the medical directives that you might have. Essentially, do you trust the people around you to pull the plug if that's what you've asked them to do? because there are very real instances where people balk at that and will leave people going and suffering because they don't want the manifested pressure and responsibility of being the person to make the call to take somebody off of life support or to carry out a DNR. So you got to have people who can make that call. And if this is the guy who can really immerse himself in that and dedicate himself to it, be curious about it, and get really just like all about it, such that he creates the Hades protocol in a way that it absolutely needs to be created, then that's your guy. And I respect that the people on Project Zero Dawn are willing to do that. I believe there was something about him being clocked as a sociopath or something like that. And just to be clear, sociopath doesn't mean stupid. Sociopath doesn't mean unable to move through the world. There are plenty of people who would be tagged as sociopathic who are perfectly capable of engaging in the world, sometimes to a very scary degree. So if this is a project that he's excited about and taking it on and can make it happen, and it gives him some sense of purpose, whether it's selfish or not, great. Because ultimately the project needs this. It makes complete sense why you would have this protocol. It's a very cool touch and speaks to how thought out the world of this game is that you would have somebody do that, because it makes a hell of a lot of sense that you'd have somebody like him be the one that would program that.
Okay, so if that's the original purpose of Hades, why does it want me extinct?
We need more data.
And how does it end up in the wreckage of a Pharaoh Titan, getting worshipped by the Eclipse like some kind of god?
I'm learning as you are, Aloy. Keep searching.
He's softened up a little bit here. All right, let's see what we got. Noise complaints from Travis Tate. From Travis Tate to Elizabeth Sobeck. Noise complaints. Color me confounded, Lizzie. Bashcore? Anyone who says the old TT codes to Bashcore is straight up lying. You know it. Old Trav don't have no truck with commercialized razzle-dazz. Nuh-uh. Heck, I'd rather guzzle a liter of Citterum runoff than listen to Grey Swarm for 30 seconds. Hand to God and swear on my mama's grave, and she was religious. Nah, that ain't Bashcore blasting in Hades labs, shaking the walls, rattling folks' teeth. It's death metal, girl. Classical music. 80s and 90s mostly. Got me some Dutch deathcore, some Japanese gore grind, some Swedish cannibal themed stuff too. Stop by if you want to listen. Or heck, just come within 50 meters of the lab. Ain't no bashcore you'll see, or hear rather, on the screech that rends the air. And feel in the throbbing pulse of the floor and walls, and Sylens swallowing you up like you was Jonah trapped in the gullet of gothic deathfish. Hallelujah. As for those requests to turn it down, no can do, Lizzie. This is how I code. Turn down my death metal, might as well give up stimulants, chocolate malts, and industrial accident vids. Last I heard, we was supposed to be coding Hades down here. Am I really supposed to code an extinction protocol without death metal to inspire me? No, I don't think so. Stay cool, Trav. Dude knows what he needs. He's willing to put it out there. Text log. Data corruption minimal. Tate here. Just popped 3 blues, but I earned it. Finally figured out a Goldilocks situation to Gaia's rather extreme executive authority. If that ain't worth 10 to 12 hours of dream time, what is? Before this, every usurpation protocol I designed failed to simulation because it was either too hard or too soft. Too hard and it degraded the Gaia core. Sure, it pried her figurative fingers off the figurative driving wheel so Hades could take control, but by breaking her fingers, sometimes her arms too, so that couldn't fly. Everything depends on Gaia taking control back after Hades has done its business, so I had to find a solution that didn't leave Gaia any worse for the wear. Too soft, and Gaia only pretended to relinquish control. Simulation after simulation, Hades would take command of the terraforming system and reverse operations, only to have Gaia lurk in the background quietly, reversing processes and falsifying telemetry to hide its interference. Sneaky. I swear, ain't nothing Gaia wouldn't do to keep life going, even when it's just simulated plant life. Turns out the just right solution is to isolate Gaia in a protective code shell, preserving its integrity, then unseat it from command position so Hades can slip into the figurative captain's chair and work its magic. Those blues are coming on strong now, so I'm not really describing it so clear, but pretty sure it'll work. Yeah, those blues are plenty strong. Guess it's time to sleep in bed. I'll be back at it tomorrow, alligators. It's a clever way to not have to go too much into detail on stuff that we have no idea how to comprehend. Right, so Gaia is an extreme. Gaia is preserve life at all costs. So you gotta have the countermeasure. It's fascinating, man. The amount of thought that's going into this shit. Gotta cover your bases. Archive abuse from Samina Ibaji. To Travis Tate, CC Elizabeth Sobek. Archive abuse. Mr. Tate. This mail concerns Apollo Archive submission number 000023876. Your 666th submission in just 5 days, and oh, what a doozy. Despite earlier warnings, RE inappropriate materials, you chose to submit 265 holographic remasters of acknowledged classics of extreme exploitation cinema. Allow me then to thank you on 2 counts. 1, for giving me the pleasure of rejecting your submission, thereby consigning your favorite Eastern European torture flicks and their ilk to the dust heap of oblivion. Truly warms my heart to know that I have saved future humanity from the ordeal of experiencing not just one, but all 16 installments of Making a Millipede. Don't worry, the Pasolini material has already been preserved, extreme perhaps, but art. 2, for clarifying a concept that has so long been ambiguous and ethically fraught for archivists such as myself. Archivists. The definition of obscenity. You have freed me from the subjective quagmire embodied in Judge Potter's famous utterance, I know it when I see it. Thanks to you, I can now apply a single objective criterion. If Travis Tate submitted it, it's obscene. Accordingly, I have directed Apollo's staff to summarily reject all of your future submissions sight unseen. Perhaps you might invest the time you would have spent preparing further submissions on, oh, I don't know, your assigned work? We have a world to save after all, or the rest of us do anyway. Dr. Samina Ibaji. All right, so I have a minimal amount that I can offer on this, but I am gonna try to inject some perspective on this. And I want to be clear that when I say all of this, I am not condoning Travis Tate's actions. But I do think it's important to explain them and have some context. So, the brain is a fascinating organ. And it is one that we do not fully understand. And the brain is just another piece of organic tissue that is in your body that controls a lot of things. One of them being like your general orientation to social relationships. Well, like anything, you can have anomalies with the brain that create or cultivate certain types of behaviors and cognitions and orientations to the world. There are people that brain chemistry and design essentially leads to where they do not possess the capacity for empathy. And the word that we traditionally use in that regard is either sociopath or psychopath. They're generally used interchangeably. But that's something that can be kind of scary for people who do have it, because when you don't have that piece of your brain firing, there is a real scientific approach to the way sometimes that you view certain things that others might find to be repulsive because of the fact that empathy fires for them. And if you have any interest in reading about some serial killers that have existed over the history of humanity, you will find that those people are willing to engage sometimes in behaviors that the general populace would find utterly appalling. But for those people, they don't register it the same way. I mean, it's fascinating. It's like literally their brain does not allow them to process what that is in the same way that anybody else would. And it's wild because we can't get into another person's brain in order to like understand the way that it is to be that person. So we have this like general standard that we generally hold people to. And when there are sometimes very real biological issues that constrain a person from being able to participate in that way, it creates problems. And again, I'm not condoning his behaviors. Like if he was like torturing animals or whatever, that's not okay. Like the impact of that person still matters. But it's fascinating to think about in the same way that like when we think about like diabetes or hypoglycemia, where the pancreas is either not creating enough insulin or creates too much or whatever, like there are real ramifications for that organ not being wired the way that we generally expect it to be wired. The brain is no different. And so Travis Tate may just be wired differently. And it means that he might have a different orientation to humanity, to human relationships, to whatever. It could be that because he doesn't get any kind of stimulation, he has to go to utter extremes in order to experience any kind of novelty. Like there's any number of things that might be contributing to why Travis Tate is interested in the things that he's interested in. And we have this tendency sometimes to say sociopath and then just dump people into a category in that way, rather than approach it like empathically and try to like understand it from like an anthropological perspective or a biological perspective or anatomy perspective, like whatever you want to call it. Like it's really fascinating to me when we look at things that way. So again, it would probably make a lot of people uncomfortable to have Travis around, and that's fair. And Travis probably wouldn't care. But then you start to see a level of censorship on that, which then gets into a really sticky conversation about who gets to make the call on what is or isn't art, what is or isn't part of the human experience that's worth preserving. Because the reality is, if you're going to preserve all of human experience, it means you have to preserve all of human experience, or else you are starting to censor the human experience in a particular way that serves the needs or agenda of certain people. Like the human centipede might be a very repulsive thing, but that's something that somebody has thought up. That is part of the human experience. You can't say, oh man, the pyramids are this amazing cultural phenomenon, and not say slavery made them. Like and so much of like the amazing wonders of the world were created through exploitation of other humans. You can't just leave that out of it. If you want to have the next round of humans have everything, you have to give them everything. And so as soon as we have this person rejecting, and I would even argue that having Travis Tate submit those items is a key component of the preservation of the entirety of the human experience. Because other people may not be interested in going in and finding that stuff. I mean, I could go to the extreme of like, you to an extent you'd have to preserve the idea that like pedophilia exists. Child pornography is a thing. Like, do we objectively say that like sexual exploitations of children is terrible? Yes. I'm not condoning that in any way, shape, or form. But again, when you start drawing limits on what we're going to preserve, you're starting to control a narrative of the human experience. Some might say that's for better. Some might say that's for worse. But to have Travis censored just unilaterally, I think is unfair to him. These types of conversation, I mean, I love that this game facilitates these types of conversation.
Looks like the only way onwards.
Welcome to Eleuthia, the crown and king of Gaia's subordinate functions. For it is by Eleuthia that the human race will continue to exist. I am Patrick Brochard-Klein, the alpha in charge of this program. Now let one thing be perfectly clear from the outset. Eleuthia is not a genetic engineering project. Our goal is to preserve the human genome, not alter it. A snapshot of human genetic diversity, literally frozen in time. The genetic quintessence of our species, unmodified. Under my watch, our activities and initiatives will comply with the 2034 clone provisions and the 2048 Rally Accords. Now that may seem a quaint, even trivial concern to you in light of present circumstances. But, as one of the authors of the Accords, it is far from trivial to me. The practical challenges before us are staggering in scope and complexity, but not insurmountable. No. Global collation and provisional storage of zygotes, perfection of exogenic technologies, design and perfection of servitors, to provide nurture and inculcation during early child development. All of these program components must and will proceed in tandem. To say nothing of the breakneck construction of cradle facilities at sites around the world. So, si vous êtes prêts, let us begin.
Woo! Okie dokie. I mean, I think to an extent you take a lot of risk in trying to alternate the human genome, so I can appreciate why they would want to preserve it as is. Because I guess you can't really be doing too much experimentation right now. All right, from Patrick Klein, FZ Chambers, to Elizabeth Sobek. The Ectogenetic chambers arrived 2 days ago. I've spent the last 36 hours examining them and poring over technical documentation. They're a revelation. Astonishing. I don't know what you had to give Far Zenith in trade to get these chambers, but it was worth it. In a single leap, their embryologists have vaulted past 50 years of technological shortcomings. The risks of ECMO resolved. Nutrition delivery resolved. Hormonal stability resolved. 12 other risk areas resolved. Before I examined these chambers, I considered the Odyssey to be a fool's errand. But if the rest of FZ's technology is at this level, well, a human colony around Sirius doesn't seem so impossible after all. Mass fabrication of the chambers will present a number of challenges, but I am confident they can be resolved. I'm going to rest for a few hours, then get back to it. Expect a fabrication plan within 48 hours. PBK. Me too, Ethereal. Oh, yeah. Gotta love these little mini miracles while stuff's going down here. All right. To Elizabeth Sobek, cradle sealed. Eleuthia 01 was successfully sealed before the swarm advancing across Xinjiang province could detect it. Ping back from crucial systems is good. For our maiden voyage, a success. Regards my disputes with the betas over zygote selection. Of course, I understand we have limited overhead to run simulations of gene flow in our future humans. But we can all agree there is margin for refinement in future cradle populations. Dunk. In addition to personally overseeing completion of Eleuthia 02 site inside Mount Namuli, I will formulate and propose a modified zygote selection plan within the week. I wonder if that is where we came from. Because Aloy just showed up. Very interesting. Don't tell me. But I'm wondering. All right. Cradle Servitor Personae. Development of the artificial personae for Cradle Servitors, Nurturer, Disciplinarian, Healer, continues at a good pace. We are targeting Turing 0.4 for these constructs. This should allow low-grade empathy and limited improvisation without undermining adherence to codified behavior sets. The stimulus-driven switching of personae, however, is proving to be a greater software challenge than anticipated, especially concerning our entrenched feedback loops between the disciplinarian and healer personae. I have also attached the reports from an incident where a servitor running the mother personae intervened on a disciplinarian servitor's behavior. A parental argument, if you will. Amusing on first glance, perhaps, but deeply concerning. I have attached a comprehensive plan for correcting these interactive protocol shortcomings. In just data corrupted. Oh man. All right. So, boy, now we're getting into DrMick's wheelhouse. And as I was reading that, the only thing I could think of was, holy shit, how do I not talk for 2 hours about what this part of this is? Oh boy. As with my old PhD in human development, this really gets me all jazzed up. Boy, oh boy. Oh man. God, so you would have, oh man, okay. So the general gist of this is that when you start humanity over, you are not going to have any kind of sociological or psychological development unless there are entities present to facilitate that development. And this makes sense. Like, you are biologically going to develop. Like, you pop a baby out in the grass in the next area, and assuming that that baby has access to whatever resources, then like the biology of the child is going to grow. But if you're going to facilitate a social being, that has to be scaffolded. Literally what parenting is. And you're not going to have humans that are capable of taking the information in that this Apollo is going to provide unless you are able to facilitate a particular type of socio-psychological development within these kids. But how do you do that when you don't have humans? Because the tricky part about this is, like, when you're a parent or a guardian, or you're somebody that's facilitating the development of another human, the things that drive the decisions you make in terms of what you reinforce and what you pay attention to and what you facilitate are driven from your own subjective history, as well as from some information that you gather from the environment that you're able to synthesize by virtue of having language and a brain that can comprehend complex structures and abstractions and all sorts of shit. Like, what's wild about this is that, like, if you read a parenting textbook, you would have, in order for you to comprehend a book about parenting, you have to have some base level understanding of parenting as a concept in order to be able to synthesize that information in any kind of meaningful way. If you're starting humans over, they don't have that. So the question now becomes, what do you have to inject into these, like, servitors and personas and entities that are going to raise the first and second rounds of humans, such that the humans are able to comprehend the world in the way that you theoretically want them to comprehend the world? And I don't know the answer to that. Because that is just so infinitely complex. Like, what this guy is trying to accomplish is something that I really don't think, and I understand why, I really don't think people would ever take the time to actually consider just how complicated all of this shit is. Because in some ways, you have to inject these personae with a particular hierarchy of priorities. And you're literally playing God by doing that. Because, like, you can make the AI, like, pure, but when you start bringing in organic materials, in this case humans, it's not a one-to-one. Like, just because a human might have a certain environment and a certain level of nurture available to them, you're not guaranteed to have that human turn out in a particular way. I mean, you can play with percentages, but when they say they have to have, like, a level of improvisation built into these, they have to, like, to create improvisation means that you have to, oh my God, oh man. To create improvisation means that you would have to create a contextual awareness. You would have to create the ability for the AI or the persona, whatever word you want to use here, is going to have to be able to take in the information that it's receiving. And it would have to be able to put that information in context. But the only information that it has to put it in context is what it has been programmed to have as context. Like, when you raise a child, part of the ways that you make your decisions were, in some ways, how you were raised and how things were reinforced for you, whether knowingly or not. And so this AI doesn't have the benefit of having been raised before and developed itself, and probably has no awareness of its development to put into its directives when it's raising the child. So again, you have all these people that have to decide, well, what is it that we need to actually put into this in order to facilitate the development of a human? Well, you would need, I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind for me. You would need a persona that is able to create proximity to the child when the child experiences adversity, which it's going to do, which means that the AI has to recognize an adverse experience and would have to have some sort of protocol that gives it whatever the equivalent of a physiological reaction would be in order to respond to it. Like, for example, if a child is like 3 years old and that child trips and falls and scrapes their knee, that servitor can't look at the kid and do this like analysis and be like, oh, physiological reaction is high, injury not lethal, whatever, and then take this like very pragmatic approach to the kid, because that kid is going to need some level of empathic emotional response, and it's going to need proximity to what it sees as its caregiver. So that bot has to be able to create proximity. It has to have some sort of empathy protocol to be able to register that a child is in pain or is hurting or is in need. It would have to it would have to understand how to scaffold skill development, which means that it would have to understand child's what a child is and isn't capable of, which I guess it could learn over time, but you'd have to have basically a level of trial humans so that the AI could learn what like infants and 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds and whatever are capable of. Which means you're essentially going to have to sacrifice droves of children in the effort to build the AI's contextual awareness of what it is to raise a kid. Like, you have to manufacture, like, you have to basically artificially manufacture evolution of the AI in order to get the AI into a place where it's capable of raising the children. Like, that AI has to learn what works and what doesn't, which means that you are going to sacrifice kids in the process of teaching the AI what is and isn't, like, because if the AI learns that when a child falls down and scrapes their knee, if there's one AI that has like a physical entity that creates proximity, and when I say that, I mean gets closer to, like actually moves its body close and, like, you know, gives the kid a hug or whatever. And then there's another AI that does not do that and takes the pragmatic approach, and then that kid doesn't believe that the persona is available and consistent and reliable, and so they go off on their own and then they get killed. That AI essentially has now learned that kind of response is not great, but you had to sacrifice a kid in order for that to happen. Or the AI is going to have to observe that the ideal outcome would be for the AI to respond to the kid in that particular kind of way. I'm like scratching the surface on this shit, y'all. I mean, programming this in a lot of ways is unfathomable to me. Like, this is where if I'm in the airlock, so to speak, on the Project Zero Dawn facility, and the counselors brought me in and said, hey, Dr. Mick, one of the reasons we want you here is because of your expertise in human development, and we have to create humans. We have to learn how to make humans develop, sans the environment that automatically facilitates development that has been created and evolved over centuries and millennia. My first reaction is going to be very similar to the NASA guy, where I'm like, you guys are insane if you think you can do that. If you think we can do that in 18 months or 16 months or whatever it is, you are out of your mind. But, I mean, I realize there's more technology. It's true. There's more technology to run these simulations and stuff. But, like, man, you really, if there is anything more than anything that is going to bias the human condition, it's the way that this is programmed. Like, this is truly an important task. Because how do you want what are the things that you want humans to learn? What are the types of responses that you want these humans to have from their caregivers? And yeah, Hades, it's a great point. Like, then you bring in Hades. So what happens if you have these AI that are not nurturing humans in a particularly decent way, and it creates all this bullshit, and like kids are ravaging the planet or whatever? Like, does Hades come in and just wipe all the kids out and then we start over? I mean, there's just so many questions to ask here. And then it makes you wonder if part of Hades' operation is because maybe the humans that exist now, like Aloy, like the Nora and the Karja and shit, are starting to act in ways that the machines are seeing as threatening to the unity of the planet, and thus are revolting against the humans because they see the humans as being very anti making the world a better place. I mean, there's just so much shit going on in this that, like, I just, my brain is like ping-ponging 1,000 different directions right now. But it's really fascinating stuff here. I mean, this is just, I mean, how many generations does it take for critical thought to develop in a vacuum? I mean, hundreds. But you also have to realize that critical thought in and of itself has a developmental trajectory. Like, for example, like back in the caveman days, like the creation of the wheel would potentially be an example of critical thought that at that time, relative to other thought, is just like unbelievable. Fast forward to 2067, and critical thought is talking about the shit we're talking about right now. So critical thought in and of itself is an evolutionary process. To an extent, you could make an argument that, like, from a natural selection point of view, critical thought is akin to survival. But you don't just know all of this off the bat. Like, it's, oh man, I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me the way that you would even go about trying to create this stuff. This is stuff we just don't think about. Like, there are millennia of, I used this example, I think, in the last stream. There are thousands of years of development of theories, understanding of like physics and the way that the world works that have led to a bazillion micro developments that have gotten us to a point where I could even broadcast this, that this video game exists, that I'm broadcasting it real time, that it sits on a server on YouTube and people can access it whenever they want from whatever device they want. Like, if you took even a piece of that, you take even the processor of my computer, there is just an unfathomable amount of micro developments that have happened over the course of history that have led to the existence of that processor, let alone the motherboard, let alone the understanding of electricity that is regulated and run through my PC in order to do this. Like, I don't even know that there's a good way for me to describe the scale of this. It's just, it is an unbelievable amount of scale that you're trying to develop here. So, is it possible to create an AI that has the level of sentience that's required to facilitate the development of a human being? I don't know, man. And maybe that's why there's boars and squirrels and fox and shit that are sitting on the planet, because maybe they had to try to do that. I don't even know. I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me. It is absolutely mind-blowing. Like, this just lit my brain on fire going through this part. Would eliminating socially undesirable behaviors humans have developed to be a similar issue? Yeah, I mean, it is, Maddie. Like, that's the thing, is like, you are absolutely playing God here. You are absolutely playing God. Like, you are making a determination of what human behaviors are desirable by virtue of what you program these AI to facilitate. 1,000%. Oh, man. I don't want to. Oh, all right. It was a long time. If you're still with me on the YouTube video, holy shit. This would be my room right here. This would be where I'd be hanging out. And my approach to this would not be that can't be done necessarily. It just would be like, we have to be so thoughtful about how we do it. And this is so much more complex than probably anybody here would even imagine that it is. It is unbelievable what would go into this. You would have to, God, you'd have to have, the AI would have to be able to facilitate deductive reasoning because humans are going to be inherently inductive. You would have to, which means that the AI, which I guess it would by virtue of being an actual AI, would have the ability to deduce, but it would have to understand the interactional process required to facilitate the development of deductive reasoning and abstract, like formal operational thought over the lifespan. And I'm just like thinking, like, how would you even do that? God, my dissertation could have been so much more interesting than it was. Oh. Wow.
Cradle facilities. Elizabeth said a new generation of humans would be spawned inside such places.
She did.
All Mother Mountain. It was one of them?
There's only one way to be sure.
The hatch wouldn't open. Something about a corrupted alpha registry. I need to search Elizabeth's office.
Yeah, you do. Oh, baby. Thank God I stopped when I did on the last episode. Holy crap. Oh, baby.
Looks like it used to hold something. Some component that got removed.
Nuts would benefit from antilopinae morphologies, though caprid forms show superior load-bearing capability.
You're a quick study, Gaia.
Dr. Sobek, as I have conducted this comparative analysis of mammalian morphologies, I've gathered extensive data on the quaternary extinction event.
Oh? And your assessment? Gaia?
Logically speaking, the extinction was a natural consequence.
And yet,
I find the loss of megafaunal species unaccountably sad. That they passed forever into oblivion causes me to experience a grief that is difficult to describe. Am I malfunctioning?
No, Gaia, you're not. This is good. It's very good.
Oh, man. How you would okay, I don't know nothing about programming, so I'm just spitballing here, okay? I have no idea how you would ever program emotion. I mean, there's some way to do it, I'm sure. And obviously they figured it out. But like in some way, you would have to have some kind of concrete measurable thing that would ping the AI to have that kind of experience. But here's the thing is like you in some ways would have to have a value set built into the AI that prioritizes certain things, which it certainly seems that they did. I mean, Gaia is very like pro-life. And so when the bot sees a mass extinction event, it can see it logically, but it's like, is there an electrical surge or a like coding dissonance that's created that the AI then just interprets in that particular way and then adds language to it in order to have a discussion with Elizabeth about it? Like, we don't learn emotions, Thesaurus. Like, that's the thing, is humans don't learn emotions. Humans have them. And they learn language to articulate them. Like, the difference between a human who's angry and a hyena that's angry is that the human possesses a prefrontal cortex that can abstractly understand that physical sensation and provides language to describe it. And like really what emotions are just changes in physiology related to the brain's processing of stimuli in the environment. And so, I mean, again, you could have the AI see certain stimuli in the environment, but God, if you really want to get in the wormhole here, even the concept of emotions is a construction. Like, emotions is just, it's a thing that the human brain has developed and codified into the language that says this is an emotion. This is a change in physiology. Physiology is a construct. Like, so much stuff is just a construct. Like, it's literally us trying to take the things that we observe and then make them like make these abstractions and they make these deeper meanings and all of this stuff. An emotion is a change in physiology as we understand it that gives us information about how to respond to the environment. That's all it is. Like, I say this on so many playthroughs. Anxiety, as we understand it, is a risk mitigating emotion. It is a physiological experience that is sent through your body from your brain to alert you that there is an unknown which has potential risk attached to it and that you need to do something, whether that's freeze, whether that's run away, whether that's fight it, whether it's whatever. But that's what anxiety is. That's all it is. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not any of the qualifications that we have put on it, which, by the way, are laced with a bunch of value judgments. We could ostensibly live in a society where we look at anxiety as the end-all, be-all, as like the best possible emotional experience you could have. We just happen to have decided that happiness is that. So like humans have made these value attributions for certain emotional experiences, but at the end of the day, an emotional experience is just a change in physiology. That's all. And sometimes you have a hormone response, sometimes you have a neural response, sometimes you have both. Like, it's the central processing unit of your brain trying to make sense of the environment and everything that's in it. And it's developed certain ways of throwing things into boxes so that it can kind of ignore them because it's generally created this idea that it's safe. You know, you don't think twice about walking on the grass because grass is, your brain is like, yeah, grass is cool, unless you have some understanding of like some abstract idea that like your HOA is going to fine you if you stand on the grass, or that grass has pesticides in it or whatever. So it's just, it's the whole concept that Gaia could examine the history and see an extinction event and say that it is having a reaction to it that it doesn't understand is fascinating, because it presupposes that we understand how humans do that well enough to be able to code it into a virtual interface. And I have no idea how you would do that. I was just... But they figured it out somehow. And so when she says, it's good that you've experienced that, I mean, yeah, it just means that Gaia, who's creating, you know, humanity and all this stuff, has emotions and has the ability to read the environment in that way and make certain value attributions about it. But, man, we'd have to know way more about the brain in order to be able to do any of this. And we don't. I mean, really, I think what fascinates me most about like AI and all this stuff and like a world like this that's built in this video game is it really is, I think, an exploration of how little we still understand about ourselves. Like this entire thing that we're in here is predicated on this idea that like survival is the ultimate goal. Like, why do any of this? Because we inherently want to survive. Well, is the drive to survive something that we've created? Is it something that is so deeply embedded within us that we're pulled to do it regardless? Like, there's so many questions that this kind of space forces ourselves to ask, and it really starts to highlight just how little we actually know. I, for one, love sitting in the dissonance of that, and I hope you do too. I'm guessing you do, since you're still here.
You will undergo a brief period of unconsciousness during relocation to Prime and final instatement.
Elizabeth, may I speak outside protocol?
When you're back up and running at the new site, we'll bring the subordinate functions online and see where we stand.
Elizabeth, I detect distress. Are you all right?
I'm fine.
I realize that circumstances compel us to launch earlier than we hoped, but all subsystems are operational. The odds stand in our favor.
But what if... Gaia, there's nothing left out there. You can't even survive unless you're wearing an environmental suit. There are billions dead, in fear and agony. What if it was all for nothing?
Elizabeth, extinction was inevitable. Thanks to you, life will have a future.
You really believe that?
I believe in you, Elizabeth. In you, all things.
The answer to Elizabeth's question is one that I think will bring distress to a lot of people, if you really think about it. Like when Elizabeth says, what if it was all for nothing? The answer to that is, then it was all for nothing. That's it. There's really nothing beyond that. But somewhere down the line, humans developed a sense that things have to have meaning. That it's kind of fascinating. Like part of the way that humans are driven to survive in situations where they understand more complexity than maybe other animals do is the development of meaning. The development that this stuff has to matter somehow. I am driving myself to survive right now and driving to have other generations of humans survive because it matters. But the reality is the idea that something matters is in and of itself abstract and is subjective. And so when she says, what if it's all for nothing? Then it was all for nothing. If humanity doesn't go on, humanity doesn't go on. That's it. And if that sucks, that's a takeaway that you're making of it. If you're like, then it means I'm a failure, and it means I'm this, and it means I'm that. Like, is any of that actually true, or are those just things you tell yourself as part of the way that you try to comprehend the world with this complex brain that you have? And I can understand why she would be struggling with that, because she's devoted a hell of a lot of time and energy and resources to try to make this work. But the reality is it may not. And she also is going to be dead regardless of whether it works or not. And so it makes you wonder if Gaia is trying to reassure her and say that all will be well, just to try to calm Elizabeth down, knowing that Elizabeth will never know whether it actually works out or not. Is it better for Elizabeth to die with the AI saying the probability is high, when the AI knows that it isn't because it wants to mitigate the distress that it's perceiving from Elizabeth? Or does it actually believe that the odds are in their favor? If you had a truly smart AI that was reading the situation and had contextual awareness, that AI might lie to her there. Especially if its own existence and survival is dependent upon Elizabeth continuing to go on. Because if Gaia says, nah, man, it's like a 0.1% chance, and Elizabeth's like, well, then screw it, I'm not going to keep doing this, then does Gaia have a survival directive that it's trying to make sure continues? So many questions, man.
Pure logic won't cut it, Ted. To pull this off, Gaia's going to need to have some skin in the game. It has to care.
What if it runs amok? Have we learned nothing from our mistakes?
Your mistakes, I think you mean?
All I'm saying is, give it a kill switch.
She was just born, Ted. I'm not gonna put a gun to her head while she's still in the cradle.
You talk like it's a child. What if it becomes a monster?
Elizabeth, may I speak outside protocol?
Of course, Gaia, go on.
I'm sorry to contradict you, but Mr. Farrow's argument is sound. At this point, the development of my psyche is not entirely predictable. To ensure preservation of life, a hardwired override is, I believe, a necessary safeguard.
There. Satisfied, Ted?
Jeez, Liz, just do what it says.
Woo! God damn. They care, oh man. They care so deeply about stuff that they're never gonna witness. Kind of amazing, in a way. Oh, baby. Odyssey has failed. From Elizabeth Sobeck to all alphas. Subject, Odyssey has failed. All. Some terrible news, I'm afraid. Far Zenith has informed me that the Odyssey mission has failed. Last night, telemetry indicated a catastrophic antimatter containment failure as the drive spun up to depart the solar system. The ship, its crew, its cargo of zygotes and seeds, its alpha build of Apollo, all were lost. Zero Dawn is now the only hope for the continuation of the human species and earthly life. We must succeed, Elizabeth. That is not an email I'd want to send. Wow. But man, you know, this pulls the cynic out of me, though. It really does. It really does. I wonder if that's true. Like, I wonder if that's actually true. Because if Odyssey did succeed, the cynic in me wonders if there would be people who would be like, you know what? Good enough. I can hang my hat on that. And so it's like, if you wanted to continue to make sure that everybody down here is doing everything they can in order for this to succeed, you tell them it failed. How are they going to know? We're in the game of how do you make hard decisions to try to cultivate certain human behaviors in the direction of survival? And you very well run a risk of people getting complacent and being a little bit more like, well, whatever, if you tell them that Odyssey failed, or if you tell them that Odyssey worked. And I realize the engineer said that it wasn't going to work, and maybe it didn't, right? Like, maybe that is the truth, that it didn't go. But man, I don't know. If it went off without a hitch, I don't know what good necessarily it does for you to tell everybody right away if Zero Dawn's not done. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the person to make that decision. Again, I'm not saying that's true. It very well could be that Odyssey was launched, it blew up, and it's a complete failure, and this is all we got. But man, your entire directive is to make this thing work. So every decision you make about every piece of information that you send out in some ways has to be curated in a particular type of way. It's a really rough reality. Like, as hard as it was to listen to those audio logs a couple episodes ago where the messages were scrubbed when they were going out to family members, I do understand it. In the circumstances that we're in this space, I get it. How do you motivate people further when morale is low? Tell them the Odyssey blew up. Artemis status. From Charles Ronson to Elizabeth Sobeck, Artemis status. It's coming along, Liz. I'm positive about it. Those words can still mean anything. Had my sleeves rolled up negotiating with frozen zoos for their samples. So many species trapped in ghoulish hologram dioramas, suspended in what-ifs. More than 14,000 that went extinct between 2000 and 2043. We've started mapping out primary succession, selecting the pioneer organisms for a balanced and sustainable biosphere. Microorganisms and insects, rabbits and hawks, foxes and wolves. Thousands more that will have to wait their turn until our new generation can be entrusted with the duty of restoring them, so they can return to a world that, this time, will understand the concept of conservation before it's too late. There's already been too many too lates. We lost a whole collection team during the swarm breakthrough in Myanmar. The samples we lost were, well, irreplaceable. But thanks to you, Liz, the circle of life will bend, not break. The Earth was a lifeless rock before, and someday it will be again. But not now. Not like this. Not on our watch. Ronson. All right, what's this big giant orange thing here for us to look at? Let's find out.
The Alpha Registry master file.
Intact?
Yeah. No signs of corruption.
Then what are you waiting for? Copy the file.
With this, I can restore the registry at the hatch inside Allmother. Open it. Go inside.
And grasp the secrets within.
Where I was born. Maybe who gave birth to me.
Who? Are you really so naive? There will be no who waiting for you there, Aloy. Whatever birthed you into the world was a what, not a who.
You bastard.
Oh no, I had a legitimate birth. It's you, Aloy, who are the creation of a machine. But what kind of machine and why? Why were you created?
was right there with him until he took a little shot at there of like, oh, I was born legitimately. Like, you can fuck off there, bud. But he wasn't wrong up until that point. Like, when he was like, nah, it's more of a what? You ain't gonna have somebody waiting there. That's fine. But to, like, essentially say to her the same message that she's been hearing her entire life, just in a different context, it would be understandable if Aloy absolutely lost her shit on Sylens right now. Because, like, he literally just said, like, one of the worst things that Aloy could hear from somebody, which is that you are not legitimate. Because she heard that her entire life. But, man, that was shitty. I think it was cool until he said that. I do wonder what it is that drives him to say that stuff. He's a fascinating character in that regard. Like, I want to know where that came from. Like, why would he say that? Why would he throw that in Aloy's face? Like, we're not working with a full deck as it relates to Sylens, and that's become increasingly uncomfortable for me. Like, is there insecurity there? Is he jealous? I mean, I think my sense is that he's a Banuk because he has the blue wires and shit going through him, which it seems like the Banuk like to do. But it's such an odd comment for him to make, man.
Eclipse.
You need to get out of there. What you found is too valuable. You're too valuable.
Holy shit.
Still alive. Good. I have a more suitable death in mind for you, child.
The only thing that makes sense to me right now would be that dude and the Eclipse were somehow created as some kind of protocol to try to control access to this shit. Because there is absolutely no reason that I can think of beyond that why that guy would care at all about why Aloy is down there. I just can't, like, there's just no, it just makes absolutely no sense to me. And so at this point, I'm like, everything's on the table. Like, were these guys created as a control mechanism? Like, are these guys not worshiping Hades, but created by Hades in order to try to stop this shit from happening because Hades either got sabotaged or some shit like that? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me why this tribal ass dude is down here throwing a bomb at Aloy when she just got that file. It just doesn't make sense to me.
My entire life, I've always known one thing with prophetic certainty. That I was destined for glory as a great champion of the sun. Even when Jiran was murdered, even when Meridian fell, I never doubted my destiny. Until you came along. When I heard that you had survived, a doubt took root in my mind. As sure as the sun rises and falls each day, those I am bade to kill die. And yet I failed. How? Why?
Cool necklace,
With each
bro.
dig site you attacked, each loyal soldier you killed, this pestering doubt grew. It grew when High Priest Bahavas went missing. And when the true Sun King Itamen was snatched away. It not only grew, but multiplied. I kept thinking of the moment my knife pierced your throat. One twist, a simple tug of the blade, and you would have bled out. In slaughter, I am a practiced hand. So why hesitate? Why fail my destined purpose?
I guess even a monster like you can have a glimmer of conscience. You didn't kill me right away. Turn your face to the sun, child. Dressing up murder as religious sacrifice so you could feel better about it?
No, I never doubted the righteousness of killing you. And yet, your words touch close to the truth. In my heart, I deemed the order to kill you unworthy of me. You were just a savage girl. So I thought at the time. Even still, I aimed to kill you, and yet did not. This failing troubled my thoughts, haunted every step. It was only when I captured you, down in that place, that I finally glimpsed the sun's design etched at length across the course of events. You were meant to survive that day on the mountain. Meant to interfere at dig sites and kill my men. Meant to eliminate High Priest Bahavas. Meant to snatch Itamen away. Conversely, I was meant to capture you. Here. So that you might die as a sacrificial offering to the sun. Everything as it was meant to be. Predestined and preordained.
Okay.
Some destiny. You're following orders, not some grand cosmic design. You're a puppet, with Hades yanking the strings. A pawn pushed around by larger forces. It'd be laughable if there weren't so much killing involved. Hades is an ancient machine, not the buried shadow of Karja myth. It doesn't care about Meridian. It wants to kill everything and everyone. And you are its dutiful slave.
I serve not the buried shadow, but the sun in shadow. All halves of nature joined to one cause. Shadow to sun, dark to light.
Do you really not hear how ridiculous that sounds?
Look, all right, here's the reason I took that path. I should have said this before. Whatever. The reason I took that path is because this guy is, like, dead set on his narrative. Like, I mean, come on. If you're going to sit here while I'm sitting in jail as a captive audience and you're going to spew all this shit at me, like, you're already locked in, bud. So to call him a fool is useless. That would be self-serving for Aloy to call him a fool. That's catharsis for her to say that. But that's not going to reach him. All he's going to do is say, no, I'm not. Shit's all well thought out. Shut up. The only appeal that I could make to him would be to his sense of control. So saying that he's a puppet tries to appeal to the fact that he maybe, just maybe, doesn't autonomously believe everything he's saying. That maybe he could exert some control by critically thinking about what he's saying to me. It's the best chance he got there. Calling him a fool doesn't do anything.
You've gone from serving an insane homicidal Sun King to an insane homicidal machine.
Not great, Aloy.
You're moving down in the world, not up.
I'll remember those words as I watch your corpse burn. Whatever's left of it. You fail to grasp the point. As surely as you've been conquered, so has all doubt. And with certainty of belief comes unstoppable force.
Then get in this cage and put your faith to the test. See if things work out like you expect.
The circle has closed. Every element is in its proper place. Exactly where it belongs. Yeah.
This guy is insufferable. Just shut the fuck up and kill me already, dude. Like, god damn. I don't know about you, but I don't have a stomach for this kind of crap.
And beast, now caged, will serve her true purpose. A sacrificial animal. Oh, speaking of sacrifice, I forgot to tell you. After you crashed the Eclipse network, I sent messengers into the east to rally the forces there and mount an invasion of the sacred
Cool,
land.
bro.
I ordered every Nora killed. I was hoping to catch you there, but alas, it all seems to have been unnecessary.
Okay. Cool. Weird flex, dude. I like, why? What? God, I don't think you're a badass. No matter what you say to me, I don't think you're cool. Like, what are you trying to prove to me, dude? I don't, like, man, I guess I just, like, I don't understand this guy. What are your motivations? Why do you think I give a shit about any of this? So it's like, it's one of two things. It's one of two things here. Either he is intentionally not, we are intentionally not given any context on him other than what he says to us, so that this moment is absolutely insufferable, so that we share Aloy's annoyance of this guy's existence. Or this guy is, all right, bear with me here, because I refuse to believe that Gorilla would give us this shit the way that they did, because there's just no connection to it. So I'm gonna go way off the deep end here for a second, because why not? When things don't make sense to me in environments and games that are so beautifully crafted, I have to believe, for my own sanity, that there is more than meets the eye. And so I try to figure out, how can this guy, in the way that he's presenting right now, which doesn't make sense in a conventional way, how does this guy make sense? And the only thing that comes to mind is a continuation of the conversation that we just had down in the bunker. And I'm going to sound like a whack-ass conspiracy theorist here, okay? So strap in. I am increasingly of the belief that there is a chance that Hades is creating humans. Whether it's by sabotage or whether it's by the protocol that Hades is running on, is so, like, the way that this guy is presenting himself and interacting with Aloy, to me, would be potentially the result of a lack of meaningful development being facilitated. Like, it feels like the product of the very problem I was discussing down in the bunker. Like, could we go in the direction of saying this guy's a religious fanatic and he believes the sun and he believes all this? Yes, I do think that that is absolutely a possibility. But, like, why would you go, like, you would have to be either so propagandized by this or have so much reinforcement around this directive. And I don't really understand the point. Like, what is the context? What is the unflappable story that this guy has been told that would lead him to, without any kind of like empathy or like connective point here. Monologue in front of Aloy as he's about to kill her and sacrifice her to the sun. It's just weird. So it just really makes me feel like this guy was nurtured in a space that was like manufactured in a particular kind of way. And it feels very in line to an extent with what like Hades was designed to do. Like theoretically, Aloy is essentially Elizabeth Sobek. And Elizabeth Sobek is poured mostly into Gaia. And if Hades' directive is to remove Gaia's shit and to take out anything associated with it, it would stand to reason that Hades would want Aloy dead if she's like Elizabeth Sobek reincarnate. And so, like, what's a way that you potentially do that? I don't know, man. It just feels weird. Again, I'm talking out of my ass here, but it feels so freaking weird the way that this is happening. Like, every time we play one of these games and something's off for me, I gotta go into left field on this because it's just so weird. I mean, yes, growing up as again, I get it. Growing up as the champion of Duran, I don't know that it would be enough for this guy to be like this. Like, why was Duran like that? You know, like there's unless this guy was like absolutely brainwashed systematically by Duran. That is like one of the only ways I could see him showing up this way. It's just so odd to me that he's targeting Aloy and that he's like standing here and he's monologuing and it's like impossible to connect with him. It feels so off to me. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I'll shut up now.
Why butcher dozens of innocents for no gain? It's a waste of effort.
You're right. I won't even be there to enjoy it. In any case, I couldn't recall the order even if I wished to. Thanks to your destruction of the network, communication over distances is impossible. You not only doomed yourself, but an entire tribe. Do we not see the scorching judgment of the sun in these events? Your focus. Such a powerful device, isn't it?
Furthermore, I can kind of understand why people would embrace the sun if they were all created by Gaia, because Gaia would need to use the sun in order to nurture the terraforming of the earth. So it's becoming more clear to me why the sun is worshipped, at least.
And yet, so fragile.
Oh boy. Okay, well.
So you see, this time, I did not hesitate.
You're
The
so
knife
cool, dude.
has already been twisted.
Karja faithful, rejoice! Our years in shadow are over.
This guy is an idiot. Just please, everybody, I want you to just take a second and I want you to look at this man and I want you to appreciate that he is a big hulking moron. She was literally in a cage in front of him. He could have taken her spear and just killed her with it. Just do it. Just get it over with. He so easily could have just ended her life right there. And he could have tossed her carcass onto the stage and said, it's over. But no, I'm going to take somebody who has been shown herself to be nothing but capable of decimating the entire world that we live in. And I'm going to outstretch my arms and I'm going to drop her down into a Coliseum with some thunder jaws, which she can kill in less than 40 seconds. And I'm just going to let her roam free. What an idiot. Holy shit, dude. Also, he could be Vince McMahon for 10 minutes.
A new dawn trembles on the horizon. A new day soon to break. And when it does, the false Sun King will be dead, and Holy Meridian ours once more. In this, I have become an instrument of prophecy. All halves of nature join to one cause. Shadow to sun, light to dark, night to day. Behold! Hold your seats! Can you not see the proof of the sun's blessing before your eyes? How else could shadows such as these prowl in broad light of day? Were they not approved by the sun and joined to our cause? Many years ago, to consecrate this great ring, the Radiant Turan ordered many faithless, crushed beneath the hooves of the behemoth. Mighty is the behemoth in the eye of the sun, but it is mightier still, infused with the power of shadow. Let this one, who schemed and slithered, be the first to die. Let her be the first of thousands!
Cool, I don't have a bow.
Thing without weapons. My weapons are up on the platform. There's no way out of this ring. That pillar's weak. Another hit, and that pillar will come down.
Oh, don't tell me how to do it, game. Let me figure it out. Ah, so lame, man.
It's down.
Like, let me think for a minute. Would have been cool to figure out. Moron left my weapons on the platform. What an idiot. Oh my god. Let me just get dressed real quick. What are you doing, Aloy?
Hey! Guess who got her weapons back? Now you're just a big dumb target. Come and get it! Those components on the sides of its head. They've got something to do with his lift attacks. That canister on its belly. Looks important.
Yeah, you idiot. Moron.
Silence! Shadows, kill her! Kill her!
Why leave it to them? Come get me yourself!
Probably shoot, Aloy. You should probably shoot your bow. Oh shit! What's up, bud? I gotta have that knowledge. Must have knowledge. Must have a live Aloy.
Silence.
Yeah, yeah. Death and destruction, yeah. Idiot. Such a moron. How could I ever have respect for you, you dumbass?
So you're here. Really here. You risked your life.
Of course I did. If you'd been killed, the Nora's sacred mountain would never have given up its secrets.
Too bad you wasted your time, then. Helis destroyed my focus. And the Alpha Registry with it.
Nope, he's got it too. Yeah.
The whole time I've been monitoring your focus, I duplicated every data file you scanned.
Of course you did.
Installing that data to a new focus was trivially easy. Happy birthday, Isaac. Daddy sure does love his little big man.
Okay, dude.
You're really good at making it impossible to like you, Sylens. But I guess I need this.
It's time to see where you were born. Maybe you'll even learn why.
Yeah. Meet the machine that birthed me into this world. Isn't that how you put it?
I'll be off.
Wait.
Yes?
It's totally unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. Unless he wants to exert power and minimize intimacy. Like, those are the only two scenarios that I can think of where he does that. It's like he's trying to force this idea that Aloy is of pure utility to him and nothing more. Like, he's so averse to the idea that Aloy is somebody that he would essentially connect with the realization of his purpose. Like, he has dedicated his entire life to this. And if you have Aloy along for the ride with that, that's incredibly intimate, whether you want it to be or not. You are going to associate her with this. And because Sylens is the Lone Ranger and maybe has some issues with intimacy, maybe his natural birth didn't exactly give him parents that he had a great relationship with, being a dick to Aloy and doing stuff like that is going to keep her at arm's length. So essentially, he has her exactly where he wants or needs her to be from like an attachment or intimacy perspective. It's the only thing I can think of, really, in terms of like why he would continue to do that. And if that's the case for him, where he doesn't want to feel close to Aloy, that's fine. But there are other ways to cultivate that dynamic, and one way would be by naming it, though that would also be intimate. Like, you don't need to be an asshole to her and peruse her private files and do that. Like, that's incredibly invasive. Like, that essentially says to her, I went back through all of your archives and I've been watching you for a long time. Ugh. Gross.
How did you track my location when I wasn't wearing a focus?
Really, Aloy? It doesn't take a genius to surmise that Helis would throw you into the sun ring at high noon. I wore out 2 striders getting here in time, but I did. Now be on your way.
Since when can you override machines?
Ever since you discovered the technique. I had to destroy a corruptor to obtain the necessary parts, of course. But your example showed me how to do that as well. Yet another benefit of monitoring your activities through your focus. Truth be told, the underlying logic of the technique isn't so different from rites practiced by Banuk shamans, though of course, far more advanced.
Great. You're welcome, I guess.
When people say, you know, hi to my NSA agent, apparently Aloy's NSA agent is Sylens.
Helis recognized you back in the Sun Ring. You told me that you'd assisted the Eclipse, not that you knew the man who killed who almost killed me.
So now you know. The man is a serious threat. So let's do all we can to make sure that he and Hades don't succeed.
Right. I'll be on my way. To make matters worse, Helis ordered an Eclipse detachment to attack the Nora Sacred Land. The tribe's already weak. They won't stand a chance. You should come with me.
Well, absolutely not. I have preparations to make elsewhere.
What kind of... Why do I bother asking? You're not gonna tell me.
When the time is right, I'll be in touch. I'll contact you later. In the meantime, should you need to return to Shadow Carja territory, I brought armor to conceal your identity.
You think of everything, don't you?
One of us has to. Aloy, when you were recovering the Alpha Registry down in the Zero Dawn bunker, I was needlessly cruel. For your sake, I hope there is someone waiting there for you inside the mountain. Not a what, but a who. Yeah!
All right, I'll take it. I'll take that. Doesn't make everything cool, but I do appreciate that he was willing to own up to that. It's important. And it gives me an opportunity to talk about something that's not like purely related to this specific instance, but it's an important thing as sort of a PSA for me to give you. So when we talk about like your relationship to your therapist, I think this applies to other relationships too. When you think about your relationship with your therapist, there was a concept that we used to talk about when I was in grad school, and it has been absolutely the case throughout my career, which is the concept of tear and repair. And the idea is that, and this is supported in some ways by research, is that if you have only positive interactions or like good enough interactions, that facilitates a degree of intimacy with people, no doubt. But if you really want to find a layer of depth of intimacy in a relationship, if you screw up and you say something hurtful or you say something that's off the mark or you just misfire, owning up to that and apologizing and figuring out a way to push forward makes you more likely to have deeper rapport and intimacy with that person. In the case of therapy, it'd be like with your therapist, like client relationship, but it can also be in just any human relationship. That so many people get averse to taking accountability when they mess up because they're worried that if they like apologize or acknowledge it, it's going to make things worse. And it rarely does. So for Sylens to have recognized that he was needlessly cruel, to use his own words, and to then apologize to Aloy for that and say, I hope there is a who and not a what. It doesn't mean that Aloy just automatically has to hold Sylens in high regard. But it is something that's going to facilitate a degree of respect and intimacy between the two of them, both for Sylens and for Aloy. So it's incredibly important that he did that from a standpoint of wanting to continue to have a working relationship with Aloy. And I don't want to undersell that importance, but I also don't want to make it sound like just because he did that, he's clear on everything else. But own up to it when you hurt people. When you recognize that you said something that wasn't great, when you notice that somebody was hurt, or if just objectively you look at something you did and you're like, that wasn't cool, apologize. Take ownership of it. And don't do it because you need, in this case, Aloy's external reassurance. Do it because that's what's important to you to do. And I think Sylens probably made that apology there in some ways because it was important for him to do that. Maybe he did it because he knows that he wasn't going to have Aloy's buy-in if he didn't. But regardless, important that he did that. So we're literally traversing all the way back to the homeland. Or so it seems. We got like Hunter's Lodge shit on the way there, but... Oh no, we're going... Yeah, we're going to Allmother. Alright, so... That's a long way, so we're gonna go ahead and fast travel it up. I don't really want to ride my horse all the way there.
That smell. Trees on fire.
Oh my God! Hi! Jesus!
Stand here. Anything to protect the embrace. But the gates couldn't hold. This is Hades' future. Metal. Ash.
Well, that's going to be fun to clean up when we get to part 24. Thank you, friends, for sticking through this episode. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. There's so much cool shit to talk about. I have no idea where this is going, but I'm fascinated to see what it amounts to. I love how much we have learned about the world prior to this one. It's just so cool. There's just so much to go on about. Thanks as always for having any interest in my thoughts. It's such a, I don't know, it's such a cool experience to know that people give a shit about what I have to say. So I appreciate your support. Thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks for the comments, all that stuff. I appreciate y'all immensely. If you're binging the series and you want to see what's through the gates of hell, apparently, I'll see you over in part 24. If you're waiting for it to come out, we'll get it out as soon as we can. Y'all are fantastic. And I will see you in the next one.